And welcome to a special Sunday night edition of the Reigns on the Cardinals podcast. Because Mike Reigns, we've got some breaking Cardinal news.
We do.
We have a trade.
Things are happening.
We have a trade.
Things are happening. The Cardinals have finally traded. I don't want to say finally, but they have traded Willson Contreras to the Red Sox, which is now going to change the way and fully commit to the rebuild.
Yeah, three pitchers coming back to the Cardinals. It's the report. The team has not officially announced the trade yet, but reportedly the Cardinals are receiving right-handed pitcher Hunter Dobbins, who's a 26-year-old pitcher, and two minor leaguers, young right-handed pitchers that we'll talk about here in a minute. I guess the two takeaways is, number one, it's the Cardinals' second trade this winter, their second trade with the Boston Red Sox. So Sonny Gray's getting a friend somebody he knows in Willson Contreras going to the Red Sox. So, and I don't think, people are going to say, oh, it's because Hein Bloom, so came from Boston, but obviously, he didn't have a, relationship with any of these guys. So I don't think there's anything you'd read into that, except that the Red Sox needed a first baseman and they like Contreras.
The only thing that I read into it is somebody needs to tell Heim that we can trade with other teams when it comes to matters. But to me, the biggest takeaway right off the bat for this trade is it offers more flexibility in your lineup. One, it moves Burleson to first base and gets him out of left field and opens up an outfield spot. And then it also makes Herrera now the backup first baseman, in my opinion. And he's not going to play there very often, but mostly DH, right? So what it does is it allows you to keep a player like Lars Nootbaar that you might have considered trading before. Not to say that we won't trade him, but I think it opens up that option because you have more flexibility in that lineup.
Contreras did agree to waive his no-trade clause to go to the Red Sox, just as Sonny Gray did as well. 2 years left on his contract, plus an option for the next season, 2028. And I think the Cardinals also reportedly are going to pay $8 million of that contract to the Red Sox, just as they had to pay actually more than that of Gray's contract to get that deal to go through. So I think it's a trade that we have probably, maybe not necessarily the team that involved, but it's again a case where the Cardinals trying to acquire young pitching and trading a guy that they didn't feel like a couple of years from now was going to be a part of their future.
And it's really hard to evaluate trades right away, right? Because you never know when guys are young or guys are this or that or whatever. But there's a website out there called Baseball Trade Values that basically breaks down the value and the cost analysis per player, right? So, for example, Willson Contreras, based on his age and his salary and his defensive numbers and the position he plays and his offensive numbers, long story short, comes out to be a negative 14.1. So in all of the players that we returned back from Boston, we end up at a positive 9.3. So what that tells you is, in their opinion, it's a bad trade by Boston and an overpay. So the players that we got back, we actually got much better and did much better than Boston did in this deal.
The one major leaguer that the Cardinals are acquiring is Hunter Dobbins, a right-handed pitcher, 26 years old. He's originally from Texas, pitched at Texas Tech. He made his major league debut for the Red Sox, actually in a game against the Cardinals, and it's a game that all Cardinal fans remember, even though they'd like to forget it. It was that second game of the doubleheader in Boston back in April when they gave up 18 runs and got beat by the Red Sox 18-7. But Dobbins got the win in that game, pitched 5 innings, allowed 2 earned runs. So then he went on and made 13 appearances for the Red Sox this year. 11 of them starts, but his season ended in July when he tore his ACL in a play while covering first base. So I'm sure, Mike, the Cardinals had to get positive medical reports on how his recovery is coming before they would agree to that deal too.
You have to, right? And the one thing you look at is he's 26 years old. So hopefully the medical records are the way that they are. And that's probably why deal hasn't been announced yet, right? Because it's pending physicals, medical records, so something could change. But most likely everything is good there. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. And I think the thing that you look at is where we really lacked depth in our system was young, quality pitching that we controlled for a while. And the more arms you can get, the better that's going to work out to be, right? Because one of these guys are going to click. And I think the other interesting thing about this piece is the Fajardo, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it yet, but is only 19 years old. So that's a kid that is going to be hard to evaluate for a little while, but is filling a need that the Cardinals desperately had.
I think you look at all the pitchers, all the players the Cardinals have traded so far, they've required young pitching in return. Dobbins will come into spring training as a candidate to be in the Cardinal rotation, just like Richard Fitz, the other young pitcher they got from the Red Sox in the Gray deal. The other two guys, as you mentioned, are younger. They're minor league pitchers. And I'm not 100% sure about his name yet either. It's Yhoiker is his first name, Yhoiker Fajardo. He's a 19-year-old right-hander originally from Venezuela. And according to Baseball America, he was going to go into the top 10 Red Sox prospects list this season as the ninth best prospect in the Red Sox system, according to Baseball America. So at that age, that's a good guy. And then the other pitcher they're picking up poorly, Blake Aita is a 22-year-old right-handed pitcher. So you can expect both those guys to come into the Cardinals minor league system, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, they're continuing to stockpile these young arms in these deals.
And obviously, Hunter Dobbins is probably the main piece that's going to interest Cardinal fans right now, because he's going to go into your everyday starting rotation. And provided the health is where it needs to be, you're just kind of stretching out a few options, or maybe you don't need Leahy to be a full-time starter. Maybe Leahy becomes an option for your closer, or maybe Andre Palante becomes an option for your closer back in the bullpen. So it just gives you more ability to work through and see different things. Obviously 2025 for Dobbins, when he's hurt, it's hard to look at. So you look at his 2024 season, he threw 125 innings between AAA and AA, bounced back and forth, with 120 strikeouts. So, good quality control there, not a lot of walks and all of that. So those are keys that the Cardinals look for in young pitching that we need.
I guess the question now becomes who's next? We finally got a couple of trades here on the move. We obviously still have a lot of names. The Cardinals talking to a lot of teams about a lot of different players. We'll see if we can get maybe another deal made here before Christmas. But I think you're going to continue to hear the same names that we've talked about. And I think we've got an indication now that the Cardinals are of what they're really looking to do. So I wouldn't be surprised or wouldn't be shocked to see some more guys go here in the next couple of weeks.
And when we say who's next, it depends if Heim's going to pick up the phone to one of the other 28 teams, or it's going to go back to Boston. So that kind of could sway the opinion there too. But if I was a betting man, my guess would be Jojo Romero, simply because he's also the next kind of easy target that doesn't have a whole lot of things tied to him. I think Arenado is probably the other candidate right there, because at some point, it's just got to happen, right? And I think Arenado sees the writing on the wall in terms of this team's not necessarily going to compete well, but not necessarily be a top-tier team. So does that open up Arenado's no-trade list because he just wants to go to a team that's going to be a little bit more competitive than the Cardinals? And if that's the case, then that certainly makes that trade easier. I think the last candidate to get traded, or the last two, in my opinion, would be Donovan and Nootbaar, simply because Donovan's probably our best trade piece, and so he's going to require the most back. And Nootbaar, I think, kind of hindered on some of these other aspects out there. So maybe Nootbaar's the guy that we hold on to now, simply because Burleson's not going to be in left field anymore.
And I think the thing we've seen so far in Chaim Bloom, and if you listen to all the trade talk and read between the lines, he apparently has talked about all of those players with a lot of different teams, but he also has pretty much determined, here's what I want to get in return. And if he's not getting the price that the Cardinals want back in return, he's willing to sit on the player and wait. And he's still got a lot of free agents on the market that haven't signed yet, so there's still could be a lot of things could happen. We're still a couple months away from the start of spring training, so a lot of time to make more deals. So.
And I think when you look at it too, like we just mentioned, Donovan, Nootbaar, Arenado, and JoJo are probably the top candidates left to be traded off this team. There's probably not a whole lot of other. You could see, an occasional minor league guy or AAA guy to help clear some room, but my guess is it's those four that are the conversations that Chaim is having.
Mike, we appreciate the visit. Thanks for the update. And everybody, we'll keep you on top of all the other Cardinal breaking news. If there's another deal to be had, we'll be back with another special edition of Reigns on the Cardinals podcast here on STLSportsPage.com.